Good afternoon to our audience in Australia and good morning to our audience in the Asia Pacific region. Welcome to our webinar on how to overcome customer service challenges in a downturn in collaboration with Curious Things. Very excited to have you with us today, and joining us are Kylie, Pascoe, Head of Customer and Partner Experience at Australia Pharmaceutical Industry, Marcus King, Executive Director of Business Services at Keypath Education Asia Pacific, and Rick Johnson, Head of Solutions Curious Things. Before we start the discussion, just a note to make sure that you input your questions at the bottom of your screen using the chat function, and we'll be able to address them during the panel discussion. Any unanswered question will be addressed at the end of the session during our open Q&A discussion period. Please note that this webinar is being recorded and you'll be able to access this presentation on our on-demand once the event has concluded. Before we kick off the discussion, it would be great if you could give us a brief introduction of yourself. If you could start with Kylie and then Marcus and Rick.
Sure. Hi, everybody. I'm Kylie Pascoe, Head of Customer and Partner Experience at API. I have my dog, Hodgie, who may jump into the webinar at some stage. We never know. He may a cameo. I've been at API for about 4.5 months now. Prior to that was in the gambling industry at Tabcorp, Simple Energy, and also Telstra. So everything customer I love. Over to Marcus.
Thanks, Kylie. I'm really looking forward to meeting your dog at some stage. Hi, everyone. I'm Marcus King, Executive Director of Business Services at Keypath Education. So Keypath Education is an online program management company, and we partner with unis to produce online programs and market them and recruit students and look after them through that journey. At Keypath, at the moment, I'm looking at redesigning our customer experience entirely at the moment, so really tearing it apart and rebuilding it. Previously, I've worked in the BPO, business process outsourcing industry, for many, many years, and also consulted in customer experience after that as well. And Rick?
Thank you, Marcus. I'm Rick Johnson. I am the Head of Solutions at Curious Thing. Curious Thing is a voice AI company, a startup out of here in Australia. We work with organisations to conduct conversations with individuals. So whether that is students or patients or employees or, of course, customers, we help organisations engage at scale with all of their different customer sets. And my background before Curious Thing was in customer experience management and outsourcing, like Marcus. So I am very excited to talk with you both today about what's happening in the customer landscape today.
Thank you so much for your introductions. Okay, before we start the discussion, we have a polling question for the audience. What CX challenges or challenges in your business currently facing? Let us know your thoughts in the selection given, whether it is cutting operational costs, improving sales service, retaining staff, expanding service capacity, improving customer satisfaction, or none of the above. We'll give you about 30 seconds to gather your input. Okay, maybe I'll just give another 5 more seconds. All right, I think we're just going to go to the next slide to see what the audience has selected. Thank you for your selection. Very interesting results. Maybe Kylie, what are your thoughts on the audience selection? What are the biggest challenges you're seeing in businesses today? How is it impacting CX?
I love that, customer sat is number one and trying to get that right. I think that's obviously why we're here today. Where I see one of the biggest opportunities here and what I'm seeing in not just our businesses but other businesses that I've been looking into is just trying to understand that customer journey. It really does start with that. Understanding that customer journey holistically across all those touch points. There's so much data out there, structured, unstructured, social media, feedback, calls, chats, trying to get that into one place to be able to see where are customers having pain points and challenges in your business, and then being able to take that and find actual insights and then work that through, I think is a challenge because there is so much, and having the right platforms and the like, and trying to remove those silos and just getting everything into that one spot. For me, we're doing, as Marcus said, revamping all of our customer journeys and starting with the foundational mapping for me, it's really important. And that's what I think is probably one of the biggest opportunities that businesses have today is understanding the foundational work. You can have all the great glitzy stuff, but if you can't get the basic inquiries customers need resolved, fixed, it doesn't matter how much you want to surprise and delight them. So, I might pass back to you.
Marcus, would you like to add to that?
I think I'd echo what Kylie said. I mean, customer satisfaction is, what we're here for today and what's, most important for an organisation to realise its business goals, right? If customers aren't satisfied, they're not going to hang around, they're not going to keep buying. And that is a huge business challenge, right? Because it does require you, from a customer lens, to pull apart, have a look at your customer journey, what are they enjoying, what are they hating, how difficult is it for them to interact and buy and use your products. That's really the biggest goal, and it's one of the hardest ones to achieve because it is so holistic in the way you've got to approach it.
Thank you so much, Kylie and Marcus. Moving on to the next question. What is the value of good, consistent CX in a downturn? Why is it so important, especially now? Maybe, Rick, you would like to start with that.
Probably a really good segue, actually, from something that Kylie just mentioned, because I was reflecting on this before. The really consistent CX factor at the moment, I feel like matters so much more than the bells and whistles. All of that stuff we've always wanted to do around surprise and delight and have those moments of real joy sitting in a customer journey. Right now, I feel like as a customer, I just want to have the confidence that I can get through and that I'm going to have consistent support, ideally in a really convenient way when and where I want it. And I think this is really top of mind because I tried to call my internet service provider last week. My internet was out. This is always a problem working from home. And normally their customer service, like when you get through to one of their reps, is fantastic. I won't name them, but they're fantastic. But the first thing that I heard on the IVR when I got through was, like most businesses today, we're experiencing staff shortages. So there's going to be a longer wait than normal, and we'd appreciate you being nice to our people. And it's really funny that some people had voted before about retaining staff as one of the key challenges. I'm really empathetic to businesses that this is the challenge, right? You want your people to do the right thing and not come in when they're sick. But you also want your customers to be understanding that your people are doing the right thing and that you can't conjure more people out of thin air. So as a customer right now, I think that consistency, that, you're setting my expectations and meeting them, and that you are there when I need you and you don't have to wait for a long time, ideally. And, for me, convenience is a big thing. I can't call people during the day. I don't like business hours for customer service centres. My customer service hours are after hours, so please be available for me there. So I feel like, I look at it very much from a me-centric perspective, but I think it's all about that consistency and convenience and confidence that we can give people right now, much more than bells and whistles. Marcus, would you agree with that?
Oh, absolutely. You've got to get the foundations right. And connecting with your organisation, getting issues resolved and having confidence is exactly what you need, particularly for something as basic today as an internet service, right? In terms of a downturn, whether we enter a recession or not, there's a lot out there for consumers to be worried about, right? There's inflation, there's war breaking out and energy instability. So typically during a downturn, people are going to review and be thoughtful of what they're spending money on, particularly discretionary things, whether it be subscription services or, upgrading a car and things like that. They're going to perhaps be, the economics behind it is consumers are going to potentially start tightening their belt. And where customer experience is so important, I think, is to ensure that you've got loyalty and brand loyalty, right? And customer experience, a good customer experience is going to drive that. Also, recessions or downturns don't last and things do spring back. And if you've got great customer experience and you're creating awesome pathways for new customers to come in and reasons for customers to stay, you're going to flourish at the other end of that downturn, because no doubt consumers would have saved some money through a recession. It looks like most people are going to hold their jobs, hopefully, during this downturn. So there's going to be money around and you want to be there and you want to have customers that want to buy your products and spend more and resubscribe on the other end too.
Yeah. I'll just add to that, Marcus. I think, and the other biggest thing we've learned, through COVID over the last few years is, so much more is digital now. And it's so much easier to leave. So you can click and move. I can change jobs and not move from this seat and have another job tomorrow, maybe give me a week or two. But, it's the convenience of being able to shift and move like that. You're not having to, I guess, the challenges you had previously when you're trying to get out of contracts and the like. So to your point around loyalty, like building loyalty now, retaining your customers, it's going to be better for you for share of wallet. But that employee engagement, they're the ones that we want to make sure that we've got, that are providing those services, and getting the simplified processes. And that's where I think digital is such a great tool for businesses to really simplify. And as we said in the last question, looking at that journey, find the complexities, removing them, it's going to create operationally a better experience and cost base. It's going to help your employees stay more engaged, work on the things they want to work on, and ultimately, have those customers at the end of any downturn that they want to stay with you. So, I think we're all kind of pretty much saying the same thing there. It's really important.
Thank you so much, all. Maybe let's move on to the next question. Does looking for lower cost options have to be a negative customer experience? What are your thoughts on this, Kylie and Marcus?
No, definitely not. Again, as I just said, things are moving more digital in this world, and I think people are expecting it. There's definitely benefits to low cost channels. Rick said before, accessibility, when I want it, how I want it, the times I want it. We all work different hours these days, which is a joy of, I think, that we're able to do that. Businesses have the opportunity to do more proactive engagement with customers and look at what potentially historically would have cost them, quite a bit of money to maybe add some additional CX joy into a journey they haven't done. This is where some low cost channels can definitely help in those moments. So I definitely think it's not. I think the biggest piece I'd always say is know your use case, know what problem you're trying to solve is really important with anything that you're doing on a customer journey, and then start from there. So yeah, that's what I'd say. Marcus, thoughts?
Yeah, absolutely agree with what you said, Kylie. I think, 10 years ago when smartphones, for example, and the use of internet became generally widely adopted, that really powered self-service, which is obviously a scalable self-service and other automations, which is a scalable, lower cost way of interacting or managing your customer base, right? And at that time as well, I was doing some customer experience consulting within a range of organisations, including banks. And the data that we had at the time, which still stands up today, is consumers like self-serving in most parts. They enjoy it. They like feeling in control, and it inherently provides them that flexibility that Kylie was talking about to be able to, access accounts, change things, do what they want to do at the time of their choosing in a really convenient way. And that's growing. It's becoming more fragmented, and consumers are choosing their channels, and organisations are having to figure out how to enable that in different ways to meet the customer where they are. But I think the premise is the same, that lower cost options, meeting the customer where they are at that moment that they need you, is a great customer experience.
Can I just add to that as well? Because I think with all of that self-service adoption and how much we do all love it, our patience is also lower, I think. So the importance of getting it right in those channels is extra key, and which I think sometimes drives this business reluctance to implement them, because we're a little bit more scared about what if it doesn't work perfectly, and that need for like elegant exit strategies and very rapid recovery programs, whether it's coming out of a web chat or a voice chat or a self-service, in-app kind of experience. Any of those digital and self-service solutions, if you haven't got it right, you've got to recover it really fast. I know that it's, like you say, Kylie, it's so much easier to go and churn from organisation to organisation. But if the way I want to communicate with my business is via an app and their app doesn't work, I'll go to someone whose app works even more than the overall product that I'm probably buying.
Yeah, thank you so much. I totally agree with what all of you are saying as well, because time is precious and we want to get an answer addressed immediately. So if I have a self-service option, I'll definitely do a self-service option. Just calling people sometimes takes too long. Moving on to the next question. How can businesses overcome problems like resource constraints and staffing in customer service in light of a recession? Maybe you could start with that, Rick.
Sure. I mean, I think the self-serve that we've already talked about is the obvious go-to. Finding right channel for right engagement is really important. So, there's lots of different ways that we can communicate both directions between consumers and business. And, whether that's using lower cost channels like SMS. SMS is great if you just need to have a one back and forth with a customer. Email's really good if you've got richer content that you need to provide, but the open rates for both of them are reducing. And they're also they have limitations about what kind of conversation you need to have with the customer or with the business. So a lot of times voice is still the best way to communicate, particularly if you want to impart information and get feedback at the same time, or you want to be able to inspire action at a point in time. Voice is still really key. I do have obviously a bias towards voice AI being a way to make that scalable, where you take some of those human interactions and do it with the robot. Because like you say, Rika, if you're currently waiting a long time on a queue to get through to a customer service agent, that's wasted time. Who's got that much time in their day? Whereas if you're talking to an AI, you're going straight through to the solution piece. But I think picking up on something you were saying before, Marcus, about the customer redesign, is one of the ways to save money is to figure out where things are broken. And so one of my bugbears in customer service for many years has been frequently asked questions. We build web forms for frequently asked questions, and we build them into the IVRs and into the voice bots. And I feel like there's a lot more we could do as organisations to say, why are they frequently asked? What is not clear within our materials? Why do we expect customers to have to take the burden of that and call through? And I love the idea of going back and saying, sometimes there is information that you can't give to people up front so they don't have to contact you. Sometimes it has to be in the context of a moment. But you can usually preempt that as a business. So how do you proactively communicate the information they're going to need when they need it, so that then you're not having to staff to a forecast inbound queue, you're proactively managing that content, you're reducing the customer effort, and all of that costs less to do because you're controlling that demand pattern. So I think proactive communication is somewhere I see as probably a bit of an untapped opportunity for a lot of organisations. Particularly for those things that are predictable. We know a lot, like you were saying, Kylie, there's so much data about our customers. If we can suck all that into something to really understand what's about to happen next, we can completely change that customer experience and reduce our cost.
And that's the thing, Rick, the next best action, we all hear it, trying to do that in as real time as possible. That's the golden, that's the golden ticket, isn't it? Preempting that next experience, knowing what you want to do and delivering that to you. And I think that, I was doing some reading earlier today in preparation for this session, obviously. And one of the latest Qualtrics reports was actually talking about, 80% of customers, they're churning because of experience. And they're not giving brands 2, 3, 4 opportunities at it. They're giving them one and they're going. And again, that's where I think in that customer journey, understanding those friction points and getting the data as quickly as possible and acting on it in that, that voice of customer piece with your stakeholders and being able to flow that up it's really important. I love your comment about the frequently asked questions. Why are they there? And how can we maybe, have that list you can crawl through on someone's website that has so many that you never actually get to. So Yeah, it's good.
Yeah, I love this question because it actually encapsulates the problem our business is facing at the moment. Our business manages students essentially on a case-managed approach through the sales cycle, and then once they've applied and enrolled into a program, a university course, a case-managed approach to looking after them. And that philosophy is going to be fundamental for us, but it's really under pressure for all of the reasons that we're talking about today: staffing, retention, a fracturing of the way customers, like to interact, so they're becoming less responsive to emails, open rates Rick talked about earlier. So we're in the middle of redesigning that customer experience with a focus on digital, self-service, and all the things we're talking about today. But we're having to layer in strategies and tactics, essentially, to make sure that we're keeping our head above water along the way. So, and that can be done. And exactly as Rick said before, have a look at your pain points. Like, what's driving workload within your organisation? You don't need a Six Sigma black belt. You need to go and talk to your organisation and try and quantify, what's causing these problems. Of course, a Six Sigma study on it would be really effective too. But then look at strategies on how to avoid that, those transactions that customers don't really want to do. They want to use your product, not seek help about it. And move the needle that way. That's what we're doing.
Thank you so much for addressing that question. I do understand FAQ is one of the most frustrating things ever, because to answer one question, I have to go through at least probably 2 pages of FAQs. It's not conducive and it's a time waster. Kylie, you touched on voice of customer. How do we speed up learning from customers?
Good question. I think for me, voice of customer, it's imperative. If you don't know what your customers are feeling, their sentiment, where their frustrations are, it's really hard to then go and redesign these journeys and try and solve for things. So I think there's lots of untapped customer data that we have in our organisations today. Customers are throwing feedback at us all the time. For me, as I said earlier, it's all about getting the right tools or right platforms in place to bring it to you. So, whether that's survey data, whether that's call data, website, where customers are and how long they're staying on your site. We're trying to get all of that into one place, but also holding the right conversations across your business. Like, as CX leaders, it's really important that you don't feel like you have to hold it all. Like, your role really is to bring the voice of that customer to your business, talk about why there's problems, then, work collaboratively to try and solve those issues. Because for me, trying to work in a silo in a CX landscape, it's never going to work. Like, you're here to serve your customers and your business with the insights that you get. So for me, the first place would be find out where your data's at today and where it is in your organisation, what you have access to. Work with your reporting team or your analysis team or IT team to bring it together, and then from there go and have a look at the gaps in those those data sets and what else you need to kind of pull in. I think you can obviously, organisations can purchase data, you can do anything when it comes to trying to understand your landscape, but it's first understanding what you have and then seeing where those gaps are, and not being scared of customers' responses or talking to your customers. You'd be surprised at the different, organisations or people I've spoken to where they'll see a customer and they'll walk away, or they'll turn their head because there's reluctance to, what if I don't know the answer? And you don't have to know the answers, but, to show that you care and to listen is really important. Go and find the answers, call them back and, have that chat. But as leaders, it's really important to be talking proactively with your customers and understanding how they're feeling and why they're feeling it. Rick or Marcus, do you want to add to that? Yeah.
I've actually got a follow-on question for you, Kylie. Just thinking about that, because one of the things we were talking about a little while ago,
No worries.
Survey fatigue, the idea of survey fatigue for customers, where, we want to hear the voice of the customer and we want to ask them how they're feeling. Where is that at the moment? Like, there's so much observational data that we should be learning from, because you can usually see what's happening and you can tell whether a customer had a great time or not. But are you finding that that's still an issue?
It is, and I think you'll find that your comment before about open rates to SMS and email, it's no different with survey. I think when you think about customer feedback, you automatically go, let's survey the customer. Let's go out with a survey and send that to them and get a response in X amount of weeks later. And by the end of that, 4 to 6 weeks have passed when you're getting your insights back. So it's definitely there. I think you also have a different type of customer is going to provide you feedback on a survey versus another different type of customer who might, do something as far as call back the call centre, might do an online review. So I think if you're going to do surveys, I'm not saying don't, I do them, but make sure that's not the only way in which you're getting customer feedback, because you're going to get different insights from different groups and cohorts of customers through different ways in which you try and do that. So I do a blend if you are trying to definitely get that holistic view of customer.
Marcus, would you like to add to that on customer feedback?
The only thing I'd add is to append to what Kylie's saying by looking at how you survey customers. So looking at that quite holistically and how you implement it digitally also at that moment. So we've all seen the customer effort and customer sat integrated throughout the journey digitally. I think that's really important to identify, challenges, raise alarms when something's broken, and over time really improve the customer experience on all those touch points.
Yeah, I do agree. Like if I'm calling a customer service is for a specific query and you get a survey for that specific query, then how do you actually tabulate all that comes in, and how frequent do you do this line of surveys? So there's different methods of going through with it. And when is enough? How many surveys can we go through before we get fed up of answering any more surveys on how are we today? Okay, so let's move on. Kylie, a question for you. What is the importance of the voice of the customer in CX design? How do you design a great CX, and how do you identify where technology plays a key role?
I think, as I said before, unless you know the voice of customer, it's really challenging to know what you're solving for. And I think that's where some businesses can get into trouble, when they're just trying to shoehorn a customer problem into something they've already got. So it's really, really important to know what your customers want, how they behave, what their sentiment is, the frequency in which they're contacting you. So for me, it's number one, understand your voice of customer. The second part to that question is, how do you do great design? Well, firstly, it's obviously knowing your voice of customer. And as Marcus said earlier, first and foremost, understanding that customer journey. You've got to know the steps across digital and non-digital channels that customers are going. Customers aren't, they don't do usually one transaction in one moment. They're dipping into it to research online. They're coming into store to check something out. They're on their mobile checking a price. Like, there's so many different ways in which a customer is going through that journey prior to purchase, and multiple times might be occurring before they actually purchase. So it's really important to understand those functions and where the customers are dipping in and out. And as far as technology, I'm obviously not a technology expert, but I talk to my teams, I collaborate. And for me, that's the biggest piece, is working with our IT team, knowing what's in market, knowing what customers are liking and not liking, and doing research. It's really being, open and aware that there's some really great technology solutions out there that you want to kind of have a look at, but working with your teams to make sure that they are the right, solution fits for your business. And I would definitely be partnering with my IT team, as I said, and looking at that research and talking to some customers about different things. That's where I'd kind of start. But definitely, if you don't know your voice of customer, you can't start. Get that right.
Thank you, Kylie. Marcus, your thoughts on that?
Again, I think Kylie encapsulated that really well. The customer journey, the customer voice can fit into that. Understand that, and that's from their perspective. You may need help to do that. Googling around and reading a few articles is not the way to start mapping a customer journey. Definitely getting some help and really understanding and doing it over a period of time collaboratively. We have a wall in our office with swim lanes, and one is just dedicated to the customer, their view of things. So literally, what do they see? How do they consider our product? How do they find it? What do they see? What do our ads look like? What are the interaction methods in there? What happens to them is really, really, really important. And we layer systems, processes, KPIs and things along there as well. It's a really great activity.
I'm coming to your office, Marcus. I'm going on a tour.
Come and have a play on our customer journey map. There's coloured posters and we have instructions for people on how they can participate. We literally have tags that they can write feedback on and stick it on the wall. It's a great exercise, and it helps educate the business and engage people on that customer experience, because business, it's quite complicated. And when you're talking about, we want to make a change here, or we want to start outreaching to customers here, having that journey documented and enabling, education of the business allows you to contextualize that change, engage, your business partners in adopting it effectively. It's a really good activity to do.
Thank you so much.
I love that, Marcus. Yeah.
Yeah, I can put a shopping list together for Officeworks in what you need to get to make it fun. There's a few baskets you'll be coming out, and lots of A2 and A1 size cardboard.
Okay, we do have a question from the audience. We've touched on a couple of issues: FAQs, getting customer feedback faster. How are you conducting surveys, and how do you use them? What's a better way to go about this? Digital solutions, maybe? Rick, you want to answer that question first?
Well, yeah, sure. I think there's a lot of different ways that you can look at doing all of these things faster and in a cost-effective way. And naturally, I'm going to say that voice AI is one of those ways that you can do that. Because it's low customer effort. Anytime you're having a quick phone call with somebody, you're not asking them to follow this link to this website and go and complete this exhaustive web form. You're not asking them to log into anything. It's a case of just send them an SMS and say, I'm going to call you. It's a 2-minute phone call. Could you just answer these 3 questions? They know what it's for, who you're calling for, who you're calling from. That kind of just sort of pulse check information or gathering quick feedback from people is actually really well served by voice, particularly when you can handle that in an open language way. So you're not asking people to press 3 for this level of feedback. It's, hey, Marcus, we just released this product last week. What do you think? And I think that digital solutions like voice AI have a really good way of capturing that true voice of the customer in exactly their own words, exactly the way they want to say it, but still allowing you then to quickly classify it using machine learning to be able to say these are the trends coming out of it. So I think it's a great potential for a lot of those sorts of surveys.
Thank you so much, Rick. Marcus, would you like to add to that as well?
Sure. Well, our organisation, Keypath, has been using Curious Thing in collaboration with Rick, and we've been getting terrific insights. People have been really engaged in providing it. It's been really interesting to see how many people are continuing on in non-compulsory, like a decision tree that asks them further questions if they'd like to participate, and we're getting really strong results out of that. We do it in a lot of other ways too. It's very difficult for us to send surveys to a student once they've studied, because universities hold that process really tight to them, and it links to government reporting and all this other stuff they don't want us to muck around with. But I guess during the sales cycle, on all our digital assets, we have a range of integrated tools, analytical tools and heat mapping and testing and prototyping to test customer journeys through our websites. And we're starting to implement some very low customer effort feedback and response forms in relation to NPS and customer effort along the way also. And we're looking at how to quantify our contact centres' feedback on certain things as well. So we're moving towards that as well. It's one of the most valuable areas of feedback, the contact centre, but one of the most challenging elements is quantifying what the data is and what the feedback is. So we're working through that currently. Not 100% sure.
To that point, Marcus, you hit the nail on the head. Contact centre insights and information, like at the end of the day, they're the guys talking to the customers. Like there's so much there, but being able to get it easily. And I think to the question around surveys, It is a challenge. As Rick said before, there is survey fatigue. And again, for me, it comes back to that use case. What are you trying to find out and why are you trying to find it out? No one wants to receive a 25-minute long survey from a business, I wouldn't think. So it really is important to try and work out what you're solving for and where in the journey you can actually add some of those deflections into a very quick get a pulse, get that information, and being able to scale it again. Rick, to that point before, is challenging. I think with some of your services, it's definitely a lot easier to do so. I don't work with Curious Thing just so I can make sure I'm not doing a plug there. I think it's just fascinating for me that you can scale very quickly and get very fast insights from customers, which again, real time is what we're looking for.
And on the real time,
you have to really wonder about. Go for it, Rick.
Sorry, I think I've got a bit of a time lag. On the real-time piece, I think the technology we'd all love to be able to implement, but I think it's still a bit cost prohibitive, is speech analytics. The speech analytics is amazing to be able to capture that real insight from voice of the customer as it's happening. So your agents don't have to tell you, so your quality team don't have to do spot check monitoring, so you don't have to ask people after the fact. But as we're talking about where are you putting your budget, it's quite a big process of linking the value of that to the outcomes that you can deliver and how much return on investment are you going to get from those programs. So I'm a huge advocate of that tech. I think that's amazing. But if you can't quite get there, what are the other solutions that you've got to be able to gather that insight? Sorry, Marcus, over to you.
Yeah, it's actually becoming more ubiquitous. Platforms having speech analytics and that kind of insights built in. I know that Genesis, has recently activated it. So we'd moved to a separate solution with a company called Gong to move our voice recordings into and use that platform to analyse it. But there's certainly benefits in keeping things in the one platform. So we'll be migrating back to Genesis for those analytics. What was I going to say? Oh, I was going to mention with Kylie, the surveys. You've really got to wonder about the type of people that are still, in the survey all the way up to 25 minutes, and what kind of quality are you getting from that segment of people that are willing to sort of sweat it out through your survey.
And what are we incentivising to get that to happen? What incentives are we giving to get that feedback? Yeah, and that's why I said before, there's definitely a place for it, but you've got to be holistic with how you're getting, what you're looking for with your feedback, because you're only going to get a subset. Like I'm doing a big piece at the moment around some of our mapping, but it's time-takingly, but it's one-on-one interviews with different people to try and understand their insights, and that's both in business and out. But that's a labour-intensive piece. For me, it's working well because I want to know and speak to some people about some stuff. But there are definitely lots of ways in which you can get that feedback. But again, it comes to market research. Look at what's out in market, and also your type of customer. Like you want to be able to put the right type of experience and survey in front of the customer that you have as well. I think it's important.
Thank you so much for your input. I think there's two kinds of survey. There's a proactive survey and there's a reactive survey. So I mean, how do you collect data from it, and how frequently you go about giving these surveys out? And there's the 5 metrics, up to 5 metrics and up to 10 metrics, which is the correct one to use. So I guess that's what we always consider as consumers as well as businesses. Let's talk about digital solutions. What are the benefits apart from scalability? Rick, would you like to start with that?
Sure. So the benefits of digital solutions, I don't know if you want me to talk specifically about voice AI, since that's sort of the space that we're operating in, Rika.
Maybe just as a whole, like a digital solution. Maybe you can touch on voice AI then.
Yeah, look, I guess this is probably true of other channels as well. So, one of the benefits of digital solutions is consistency. So coming back to what we're talking about right at the top there, when you've got a digital solution in place, it's going to do things in the same way every single time. So you're not going to have to worry about, a human agent having a bad day or having, other kind of distractions that are making them perform not as well. Digital is always going to be really consistent. So start of the day, end of the day, middle of the night, same customer experience, which I think has a real benefit because you've programmed it to follow your business rules and deliver a certain experience, and it's always going to happen in that way. I think it's also extremely reportable. So because it's structured in such a way, data is really, really easy to consume on the back end of it for digital. So from a voice AI conversation, we know what questions are going to be asked. We know what kind of responses we're going to get in each of those areas. We classify it, as I said before, to say this is the overall theme, but you can also take out the full transcript of the information and know exactly what that person's talking about in that slide of text. It's not trying to find out what was the question that the human agent asked before and how does that correlate to where we need to put it in the system. So it makes it really malleable data to get a really good view of the customer overall. It's always available. You know, you can have an AI, a robot will answer your calls 24/7, doesn't matter how many people call at once. There is no capacity issue. So scalability, both inbound and outbound, is a huge one. And cost. It's digital solutions are cheaper. You know, that's not news to anyone, both from to set up a voice AI costs the same, less than training and onboarding one human agent in general. But you get the capacity of 150 human agents. So the scalability of those sorts of solutions financially, as well as from a customer experience perspective, is huge.
Thank you, Rick. Lastly, what factors should a business consider when determining whether this is the right fit for your team? Maybe all three of you could contribute to that question.
Yeah,
Sure,
I'll jump in.
I can start.
No,
you go first.
Go, Marcus. My time lag is a killer.
Look, I think any tech solution for your organisation, you need to educate yourself really and be curious. Go out there and go to webinars. Go and meet suppliers. Go and explore and use LinkedIn and develop networks and share information with people so that you can really understand, what are the capabilities, what are the possibilities, so that you can find something that's really, that's really going to work for your organisation, and engage with those suppliers so that they can provide a tailored, proposal for you and help you understand how this technology is going to integrate into your organisation. I always advocate for spending time with, suppliers or potential suppliers. Help them understand your business so that they can, help you sell it in and provide the benefits for it. I think involve your technology and legal teams pretty early in, I think, in terms of understanding the capability. So, for example, with Curious Thing, for example, we work with a number of partners, obviously in partnership, different universities, and we have, data share and data security agreements with them all. So we have to consider how are we going to implement this in a way that meets all of those objectives and essentially minimises the amount of data that we can share. And with Curious Thing, for example, we got it down to just two very basic data points, like a name and contact number, that we could power and get everything we needed out of Curious Things. So, we met all our obligations from that perspective. And I think engage your operations team and try and get, some people to buy into it pretty early, because they're going to share those benefits and help implement it into your business. I think one of the biggest risks in implementing anything is just any inherent skepticism or cynicism that may be within the operations team if they haven't been read in properly. Operations teams can sometimes worry that what you're doing is, going to change the environment for them, make their life different or harder, or threaten their jobs. So I think engaging them so that you've got, folk in there that are going to be ambassadors and flag flyers for the new technology is great. And I think with things like Curious Thing or email automations and other automations that we've done in our organisation, we've certainly found the right way to get the business to buy into it, so they understand that, well, actually we're going to change this process and make, this is going to be a better customer experience. It's going to reduce You know, I call it low value transaction, for example, in our organisation, or something that requires a lot of effort and doesn't produce a lot of return, to allow you guys to focus on something different, which we need to do, because there's always more that we can do within the organisation. There's always more valuable things that we can be doing with our time.
Rick or Kylie, do you want to add to what Marcus has said?
I think Marcus has nailed that that response. That was awesome. I think, know the right use cases, as I said before, and that really comes back to, you know, as Marcus said, what are the high transactions, you know, simplex or complex or low, you know, low cost or effort. Advocacy is a massive thing. Getting some internal stakeholders engaged and involved helps you sell anything into a business, but also gets that excitement and that buy-in, and get them to help test, get them to, you know, get them as part of the journey and as part of, you know, the working party. They bring that back to their teams, especially if it's at the contact centre. That can, you know, be really, really exciting. So I'd say, yeah, definitely calibration, you know, reviewing what your simplex calls or high transactional ones are as to where you want to put your technology. And we always talk internally about a minimal level product. Not viable, make it lovable for your employees and your customers. You know, trial it with a smaller group, test it out. That's why, you know, you're being able to bring insights back to the business, tweak things before you're going big, and just try and, you know, do it small and just move it along with that customer journey when you're kind of, I guess, bringing that into that custom flow. So start small is what I'd say, and you know, have those advocates in your business is definitely important.
Totally.
Minimum lovable product is gorgeous. I love that.
MLP. I stole it from my boss, so I'll have to let her know.
Kudos, Florida. I think you're both so spot on with that, and both the experimentation component and then the advocacy within the team, I think, is so key.
Yeah.
You know, years ago, I have, you know, flashbacks to implementing some of these products where you've got your silent assassins who are the frontline teams who don't agree with the technology and badmouth it to the customers, and that is so hard to get back. So, you know, one of the things that I have loved seeing as we've been implementing our different voice AI projects with our customers is the way that they go about engaging their frontline teams. In particular, you know, I'll talk about customers in a second, but like you're saying, Kylie, get them involved in testing, but get them involved in naming the AI. Get them involved in, if they want to, setting up a desk for their new digital co-worker. Give it an identity so that people understand what its purpose is and how it's going to be helping them out, and allow them to give feedback like they would give feedback about any colleague. You know, I think they could do this thing better. How can we support them in improving their skills? And the first one of those we did was over in the US, and our customer there, they did set up a desk for it. There were balloons everywhere. Everyone got little robots. It was super cute. And that's been running for 18 months now. And Parker is, you know, a part of their team. I love that. The other really brilliant one is our partner Bright here in Australia. Their digital worker, Kate, they've called her, her. And Kate has just been nominated for an award for innovation, and the team are so bought into it because their digital colleague is this innovative project that's being recognised. So good luck to Kate as a finalist in that organisation. But I also think that the customer feedback piece is really important. You know, we oftentimes, as we're launching things with these small experiments, you could go out and ask customers first, how comfortable do you feel speaking with a robot? Should we go and implement one? And they're going to say no, because they don't know yet, because we haven't necessarily had a positive experience. So doing those small experiments and asking people, what did you think straight after? You know, it's top of mind, and tell me honestly what you think, and then bring that back in and learn from it. Were they not comfortable with that conversation type? Were they not comfortable with the length of the conversation or the way something was asked? Or did they feel it needed to be more authenticated? You know, gather that feedback from the customer to design your project. And I think with any of these digital things, you know, while we're doing the big customer journey transformations and mapping everything out, you can't figure out where all of the digital things go until you've tried the digital things to see how they work. As much as you might have great feedback from the vendors, and you might have a really good understanding going and trying some of these tools, you've got to try them with your customer and with your employees to figure out how it fits for your organisation and for your service type.
Yeah. And to your point, I think a few questions earlier, Rick, sorry, I know we're on this one a little bit, but know the rollback plan. So go small, do a test, but if it doesn't work, know how you're rolling back, make sure everyone's across that. make that part of the project so that you can, just lowers the risk, lowers any risk. Obviously your legal teams and reg teams would love that. But it's just part of the process. Ideally, you don't have to roll back, but make sure you've got that plan in place as well.
It's the same
and
as
that'll
in the
enable
conversation.
more innovation.
Definitely.
Automation is definitely great, but it can't completely replace a human agent, can it? Which gets me thinking, are there touch points in the customer journey where tech solutions might work better? Rick, would you like to answer that question?
Yeah, sure. Can it completely replace a human? Look, it probably could, but is it the right experience and the right decision? There are things that are going to be better served by people. So there are things where empathy is required, or complex or nuanced decision-making is required, or there are customers who have communication or comprehension challenges. And so pigeonholing them into a conversation with the robot is not the right thing to do. Even if the robot could do a, ostensibly good job on paper, I think there is some real art to finding what works for the 80% and letting the 80% access it and go that way. And then how do you find the 20% of processes or the 20% of people and make it really easy for them to get where they need to be so that the service is right fit for right person and for right conversation. When we're going through and we're designing what we're going to be automating with our partners, I bang on about it, if I'm honest. The conversation has to be of value to the business and to the customer equally. So if it's just of value to the business because we're going to save money and this is convenient for us, your customers are probably going to hate it because they might be trying to get through to you for something which is valuable to them but not valuable to you. Or if it's of value to the customer but not to the business resents paying for it. So it's still going to be doomed to failure. People are going to say, why are we spending money on this automation project? Plus, you should probably fix it upstream anyway. I think you've really got to go through and challenge yourself and say, where is that thing where if I can solve this for the customer and it solves it for the business, that's the sweet spot. It's convenient for the customer, it's consistent and it's reliable and it's whenever they want to have that resolution, and it doesn't require empathy and it doesn't require complex decision making. And always there is a path out to a person if they need it. So I think my position today in 2022 is, can AI completely replace the humans? I don't think it should. Even if it could. I don't know. Kylie, what do you think?
Agree. No, I totally agree. When you were saying it could at the start of that call, I was like, no, I agree with you. And again, I was like, Rick, really? No, again, I've said it a few times. It's about the use cases. If it's highly complex, if it's high complaints, like I love that you've referenced empathy there, Rick, and yeah, you really have to know why you're doing it, what it's solving. I definitely think that there's so much room and the value and benefit for both customer and business when it comes to automation. But I also feel like you need that human touch, especially after, during certain transactions or certain moments that customers need somebody. And having that deflection out, again, great. It can't be complex, can't be hard. I don't want to deflect out and end up in an IVR and going through 5 different trees and having to press buttons and wait 20 minutes either. So making sure that if I've gone through an automated solution, if I need to speak to somebody, I'm speaking to somebody very quickly. It's also very important as well. Marcus, I think you also wanted to add something. We both tried to jump in at the same time.
I agree with what you guys say. It really depends on the product, of course, as well. So some products like Netflix or Uber are built from the ground up to not need a customer interaction, right? And you can't find a customer interaction if you wanted to on those sort of platforms. But more complex, things. I think you're going to see an evolution over time anyway, and layer in automation and layer in AI and layer in, not layer in self-service. That's going to be a whole digital experience that you want to design from scratch. But as Rick mentioned, and you also, Kylie, I think there's got to be, if you are using or pushing people through self-service or a digital journey, or you are layering in AI, there's got to be a human angle at the other end. You've got to be able to get to a human if that's what the customer wants.
Sorry, I was just going to say, sorry, Rick, There's nothing more frustrating than the ease of signing up or having a beautiful digital experience and then something going wrong and you cannot find a phone number to save yourself.
Yeah.
It's so infuriating. Yeah. Sorry, Rick, you were saying?
I just think we're all putting a call out to Netflix there to publish a phone number. But what I was going to add was just thinking about the empathy. One of the things that's been really interesting over the last sort of probably 12 months now has been there are some call types that we thought were going to be really bad for AI that have actually been surprisingly good. And those are things where there's high embarrassment factor and sometimes high concern as well. So we do a lot of work in the health sector. And we also do a lot of work in debt management. So, payment reminders and collections calls, the embarrassment factor of speaking to a human is really high because a lot of time people aren't trying to do the wrong thing. They just need some help and they're trying to navigate that through. And speaking to an AI is actually really favourable because there is zero judgment. Doesn't matter how human we make it sound or if we use real human voice even, it's an AI, it is signposted as such, and so people don't feel judged.
So, Rick, can I just ask on that? Do you, in the brands that you're working with, because I think that's a fantastic example of a situation where you might be embarrassed to speak to somebody, whether it's in the health sector or whether it's in somewhere like debt management. With the brands you're working with, do you, with the SMSs or the calls you're making, make it very well known that it's an AI? Because I just wouldn't answer that phone call. But I thought a call was coming because I owed money. Not knowing it was not, an AI, I'd just avoid and probably keep getting into more trouble because I didn't know how to get out or who to speak to. Do you proactively advise or?
We do. So I've got a strong ethical perspective that we should always let people know that they're speaking to an AI. And, part of that is just it's the right thing to do. And the other part is it actually modifies people's expectation of the conversation type. But what we do for particularly things like payment reminder is that's not the lead thing we're telling people in the SMS. It's not, hey, it's a robot going to call you. It's this person, this name, the digital worker from this organisation calling in 15 minutes or calling within the next hour. If it's not a great time, you can call me back anytime in the next 3 days. And so letting people not be surprised by the call or hide from it. But when you finally get yourself together and you're ready to have the conversation, you can call back and be recognised and not have to wait in the IVR and not have to get through to customer service. So there's a bit of different empowerment that we're trying to put into that conversation. And for some of our customers, we're seeing 50% of their completed calls are people calling back at a time that's convenient for them. So whether it's because they're now not handling the debt call sitting in the office next to their co-worker, or it's because they've got the kids to bed and now they've got time to talk to somebody about solving this problem, where sometimes that service channel is not available. It's a really good point, though, and hopefully you're not in debt, Kylie.
No,
we'll call you nicely.
Good.
That's good.
Thank you so much for the very interesting discussion so far. All right, audience, we're now moving on to our last polling questions. Let me just put it up for you. Right. So what solutions are you considering to maintain or transform your CX? Let us know your thoughts. Again, given in the selections given, whether it is hiring or outsourcing, offshoring, automation, AI like chatbots or voice assistants, self-service channels, or none of the above. We give you 30 seconds to gather your input again. All right, I'm just going to move to the tabulation. this is interesting. Looking at the results markers, what are all the factors should you consider when choosing a tech solution?
What are the factors to consider when choosing a tech solution? I think, really understanding what it's going to deliver. What is your business need? I saw here in the poll result, a lot of people are considering automation. So you have to have a really deep understanding of what is that going to deliver. So really understanding what's causing effort to customers, what's causing workload within your organisation. There's a lot of work, a lot of understanding to really quantify that and simulate it, and then explore a technology solution to achieve that. And that's pretty broad. I'm just trying to think there's so many things to consider there. What channel are you looking at? What is it going to deliver? Really, very broad. Maybe I might pass it over to Kylie and Rick to see if there's any way to narrow that.
I knew you were going to do that.
Do you like that?
I was just saying.
Shove that over to you.
Over the fence. Look, again, not the expert in tech, or I'm definitely not the expert in tech. But I think what Marcus said, like you do need to understand your processes and why you are automating and what you want to automate and the ease of automation. And for me, I know I keep saying it, start with the customer journey, layer it up, go to Marcus's office and have a look at his wall of how they're doing it. Make sure you understand the key touch points customers are having and where they're having them. That's where I would start before you kind of then go down the path of where we're going to automate. Understand what it looks like today with your data and all your customer pieces. Rick, anything else?
Don't go head first into just buying technology or assuming that it's going to fix something. You've got to really understand that customer journey. You've got to, yeah.
And don't automate what's broken. So much of the time you see people going, we'll automate it because that'll make the workload go away, but possibly it shouldn't be there. Fix it first, and then you automate after that.
Thank you so much. We have a closing question. Given all of these insights, what then should be the top 3 things businesses should keep in mind when trying to navigate economic challenges while improving their CX? Kylie, would you like to start with that question?
Top 3 challenges. I think back to the beginning, understand your voice of customer and your data today. From there, understand your customer journey, and then look to see how can you simplify it for our customers. As I said earlier, everything's becoming so digital. Don't make your digital experiences harder. Make them easier. Is what I'd kind of be saying. So before you can do that, you just need to understand your customers and those customer journeys.
Thank you so much. Marcus and Rick, would you like to add to the last question that we have?
Yeah, sure. Look, a downturn is just as much an opportunity as it is a challenge and a threat for organisations. Downturns, there's always a spring back. Hopefully not everyone lost their job, so maybe people are even accumulating money and they may be ready to spend pretty quickly afterwards. So you have to be ready, right? So if you sort of sacrifice products, you sacrifice your service during a downturn, you may not be ready to actually engage those customers and provide a service for them on the back end. That's really, really, really important, I think. And get the fundamentals right. Go back to basics, as Kylie said.
Yeah, I think all I'd add to that is absolutely comes back to the customers. Not all of your customers are the same, and not all customers are going to be the same going into the future, but the basics are going to hold true. People are looking for resolution. They're looking for answers. They're looking for you to be easy to deal with. Doesn't matter what product or service you're selling. So I think making sure you protect those as you're going through transformation is really important. And the other thing that I think I'm seeing more of is the landscape, in terms of tech capability, is moving really fast. So if you find yourself locking into a transformation roadmap that's stretching out over 2 years, it's probably going to be out of date by the time you get there. So how do you build for flexibility, build for the ability to experiment and to try different things, and to make sure that always as you're going through that experimentation that you're listening to your people and you're listening to your customers, because they will tell you what's working and what's not.
Okay, thank you so much. We are actually going over the time a bit. However, we do have time to answer two questions from the audience. The first question would be, sorry, just let me pull up the question. How do you get customers to accept interacting with an AI? Because people have bad experience with chatbots, they're almost always looking for ways to reach a human who can help them. What should your strategy be when deploying a digital assistant?
I guess that's for me. I'll give that a crack. Look,
you have a shot, Rick.
I think, like we were touching on before, the transparency bit is key, so people know what they should expect in an interaction, what the AI is capable of, and that there is a way out. So one of the things that I find is really effective and that customers are really responsive to is letting them know up front that I'm going to do my best to help you, and if I can't resolve it for you, I'll get you straight through to a human, but let's try together first. People are really open to it if they know that there is a backdoor, a way to get through to somebody straight away. And then you have to deliver on that promise. So there will be some people who will then still say, put me straight through to a human, and you better do it. If you want to try and keep them in channel, the frustration levels are already very high. So there's a definite art in how you structure that conversationally and how you set that up operationally to make sure that there are humans available to support people when they need to. But yeah, expectation setting is key. Tell them what you can and can't do without making it a laundry list menu of all of the things. Which of these would you like to do? Keeping it natural, but keeping it clear.
And I think also, as we said before, sorry, there's a lag. Sorry, Marcus. No, I was just going to say that it's evolving all the time, and in this digital world, people are just getting exposed to a lot more digital. So I think, the thoughts of AI back in the day, or voice AI, was very robotic, and it's changing, and people are becoming more aware about that. But it is also not for everybody, and it's not for all use cases. So again, so depending on your product or where you want to place it, that's where I think it's important to know your customers and know where you're looking to do these things, because it's not for everyone.
The way we've implemented it, the customer gets an SMS prior to the call, so they actually have an ability to opt out there and then. So give them an easy opt out if they don't want to participate. And as Rick said, make sure that there is that off ramp to a human available, genuinely available. So we actually, being AI, you can actually pump out the transactions through a window of your opportunity, essentially. And we stagger that a bit to make sure the operations are able to answer those inbound calls. And we make sure, we pay particular attention to, how the inbound calls are coming through and what the availability or occupancy is to ensure we're managing that. And then we can turn it down a bit if we're flooding the contact centre.
Thank you so much, Rick, Kylie, and Marcus, for a very eye-opening discussion, actionable insight on how to bring the best elements from AI and customer support teams to enhance CX. Okay, because in interest of time, just maybe 30 seconds thoughts, like final thoughts on what we have discussed today. Maybe Rick, you would like to start with that.
I think it's really lovely to chat with other people in quite different sectors of the industry, but the customer focus is the same everywhere. It's not necessarily about surprise and delight, because we don't know if that's what customers are looking for. So I think we're all in this sort of exploration phase at the moment, constantly exploring and learning with our customers and with our people. And I think that's a really nice place to be.
Marcus, would you like to, any final thoughts on the discussion today?
Yeah, sure. I guess just with the economic downturn, I've probably mentioned this a few times. There's so much opportunity in there. I don't mean to herald a recession or anything like that, but it does provide an opportunity for change. And a lot of organisations are born or grow through and right after a recession. So be careful about what you cut back, and don't hamper your ability to spring back on the other end.
Agree.
Kylie, you have thoughts as well?
Yeah, thank you. again, thank you everybody for logging in to hear us talk about customer and AI and everything that's exciting about that. And, you know, as we said before, understand your customers, and there's some really simple things I think every organisation can do to fix some things. So know your processes, listen to your customers, look at transactions and data, and start there. So thanks for having us.
Unfortunately, that's all the time we have for today. For those in the audience who have questions for either Rick, Kylie, or Marcus, please do send them across our way and we'll get them addressed offline. Again, you'll be able to access this presentation on our on-demand once the event has concluded. Thank you so much, Rick, Kylie, and Marcus, for your time today.
Thank you.
Bye.
All right, everybody, that concludes our webinar on how to overcome customer service challenges in a downturn. And thank you so much for joining us today. Have a nice day.
Bye.